The conflict between Russia and Ukraine is still raging as we approach the end of 2025 and the beginning of winter. Despite the war fronts becoming more tense every day, political negotiations are still ongoing. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine continues to be a global focus. NATO countries are still sending various types of ammunition and armored vehicles to Ukraine. The main points of the clashes that occurred in the first week of November 2025 are shown in this video. This is a summary video. You might see some images repeated. As the Pokrovsk front in eastern Ukraine continues to witness some of the most intense and brutal fighting in history, the Russian army's ring of fire tactic, consisting of heavy artillery barrages, drone strikes, and armored assaults, has managed to create a deep breach in Ukrainian defense lines in this critical region. Following intense battles over the past week, Russian troops managed to tactically corner Ukrainian forces by launching coordinated attacks in successive waves, taking control of one of Ukraine's most important supply routes in the region and a series of strategically valuable hills. This development, more than just a loss of territory, is recorded as a demonstration of Russia's determination and ability to translate its human resource and ammunition advantage into tangible progress. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian General Staff was forced to describe the situation as operationally complex and announced the deployment of urgent reinforcements to the region. The first images and reports from the front lines revealed the devastation caused by thousands of artillery shells falling on Ukrainian positions in all its starkness, while videos taken by Russian drones and rapidly spreading on social media showed roads filled with the wreckage of Ukrainian armored vehicles forced to retreat. These images, used as propaganda material by the destructive power of the Russian war machine, showed Ukrainian soldiers on the front lines paying a heavy price for resisting supply shortages and superior enemy fire. Russia's attack on Pokrovsk stood out not as a haphazard assault but as the product of a meticulously planned and gradually implemented strategy. The attack began weeks earlier with the accumulation of heavy artillery batteries and rocket systems in the region. Days, even weeks, of continuous artillery fire had systematically worn down Ukraine's frontline trench systems, minefields, and communication lines, creating significant psychological pressure on the defenders. Following this preparatory barrage, the first wave, consisting of low-skilled but numerous infantry units, was sent forward as shock battalions, essentially sacrificed to determine the exact location and firepower of Ukrainian positions. Ukrainian defenders managed to repel this first wave, albeit with heavy losses, but this was only the first stage of the Russian plan. The real fatal blow came in the second and third waves. After the first wave exposed Ukrainian positions, Russian Lancet and other kamikaze drones focused on the detected positions and armored vehicles, successfully destroying some of Ukraine's limited artillery systems. Subsequently, better trained and equipped infantry units, supported by T-72 and T-80 tanks, attacked weak points in Ukrainian lines. At this stage, Su-25 attack aircraft belonging to the Russian Air Force also supported the offensive by flying low and bombing Ukrainian positions. Despite showing extraordinary resistance, Ukrainian forces were forced to retreat in the face of superior enemy fire and constantly dwindling personnel numbers. A critical battle took place at a hill called High Ground, which dominated the area. Hours of fighting for this strategic point turned into trench warfare, but Russian troops, with the support of constant drone surveillance and artillery fire, eventually managed to capture the hill. This success gave the Russians a huge advantage in monitoring the surrounding Ukrainian positions and supply routes. On the same day, another critical development was that part of the main supply route connecting Pokrovsk to other Ukrainian-controlled areas came under the control of Russian snipers and artillery fire. This made it almost impossible to resupply Ukrainian troops on the front lines with ammunition, food, and personnel. The cutting of supply lines created a domino effect on Ukrainian defenses. Units whose ammunition was depleted were forced to abandon their positions, which paved the way for the further advance of Russian forces. The withdrawal took place in an orderly manner in some places and chaotically in others. According to some unconfirmed claims leaked on social media, several Ukrainian units were under threat of encirclement and suffered heavy losses. Although Ukrainian authorities denied claims of a siege, they were forced to admit that a tactical regrouping had taken place. The most important factor behind this military success is Russia's overwhelming superiority in artillery and drones. Western military observers estimate that the Russian army is using 5 to 7 times more artillery shells in this region than Ukraine. This ring of fire tactic provides constant physical and psychological attrition on the defending troops. Additionally, Russian unmanned aerial systems like Orlan and Lancet provide near-constant surveillance on every kilometer of the front, detecting every movement and immediately punishing it with artillery fire or their own attacks. Ukrainian forces, however, have limited electronic warfare systems to counter this drone threat and face a costly dilemma of having to shoot down each enemy drone with expensive air defense missiles. This victory has great strategic significance for Russia. The advance toward Pokrovsk directly threatens the city of Pokrovsk, a major Ukrainian logistics hub. The fall of the city could destabilize Ukraine's other defensive lines in the east and provide Russia with a springboard toward its larger operational goals. Additionally, this success reinforces the perception that Russia holds the initiative in the course of the war and that Ukraine's defense is fragile against constant enemy fire and manpower. On the Ukrainian side, this loss painfully underscores once again how vital Western military aid, especially critical needs like artillery shells and long-range air defense systems, is. This heavy defeat at the Pokrovsk front entered history as a stark reminder that the war is won, not only with courage and determination, but also, and perhaps more so, with ammunition, manpower, and technological superiority. The human dimension of the collapse in Ukrainian trenches is too severe to be expressed in numbers. The accounts of wounded soldiers evacuated from the region reveal the brutal face of modern warfare in all its nakedness. Units trapped in trenches for days under constant artillery fire began to suffer from water and food shortages as their supply lines were cut off. A battalion commander on the front line was forced to transmit the message in a radio conversation. "We are running out of ammunition. We cannot evacuate our wounded. The situation is critical." Some psychologically collapsed soldiers are reportedly abandoning their positions and retreating. The shockwaves created by vacuum bombs used by Russian warplanes had a devastating effect on the defenders in the trenches. While field hospitals in the region are overflowing with severely wounded soldiers, many soldiers have died due to a lack of medical supplies. This human dimension of the war also deeply affected civilians behind the front lines. As evacuations from the city of Pokrovsk accelerate, people have been forced to leave their homes. The civilian population remaining in the city is struggling to access basic necessities. International humanitarian organizations say it is becoming increasingly difficult to reach the region, while United Nations officials are calling for the urgent opening of humanitarian corridors. The logistical organization behind Russia's military success has reached remarkable proportions. A continuous flow of ammunition, fuel, and manpower is being supplied to the front lines from the occupied regions of Donetsk and Luhansk. The second and third line fortifications built by the Russian army indicate they are prepared for a potential Ukrainian counteroffensive. In repair workshops set up behind the front lines, damaged armored vehicles are quickly repaired and sent back to the front. With Russia's transition to a war economy, the production capacity of the military-industrial complex has significantly increased. On the other hand, logistical challenges are deepening on the Ukrainian side. Delivering military aid from the west to the front lines carries significant risks due to Russian airstrikes and long-range artillery fire. Attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure are also negatively impacting its military production capacity. Military experts say Ukraine urgently needs more artillery ammunition, drones, and air defense systems to stabilize its defensive lines. This new phase of the war is also leading to significant developments in international relations. Russia's military success has sparked debate among Western countries about the adequacy of support for Ukraine. The delays in the U.S. Congress's approval process for the military aid package are being concretely felt on the Ukrainian front. While European Union countries have promised to increase military aid, it is taking time for this aid to reach the front lines. China's stance toward Russia's gains is also being closely monitored. The indirect support provided by the Beijing administration to Moscow continues to be one of the significant factors influencing the course of the war. Similarly, military support from Iran and North Korea is significantly enhancing the operational capabilities of the Russian military. Developments in the Pokrovsk sector hold critical clues regarding the overall course of the war. The new tactics and changes in military doctrine developed by the Russian army are of a nature that will determine the character of future battles. The dominance of unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, on the battlefield, in particular, is fundamentally changing the nature of modern conventional warfare. As the importance of electronic warfare systems increases daily, traditional infantry tactics are also forced to adapt to these new conditions. The losses suffered by the Ukrainian army are causing deep concern not only in military terms but also for the country's demographic future. Even after the war ends, it is predicted that Ukraine's social and economic recovery could take decades. The collapse of the defense lines in Pokrovsk is not just a tactical defeat for Ukraine, but also a strategic warning. Contrary to the predictions of Western analysts, Russia's military capacity and will to continue the war remain at a fairly high level. Ukraine's resistance is directly linked to the military and economic support it receives from the West. Developments on the front lines in the coming weeks will play a decisive role not only in shaping the Ukraine-Russia war, but also in shaping the European security architecture and global balances. The events in Pokrovsk once again expose the brutal realities of modern warfare while also revealing the international community's inability to find a solution to this crisis. Don't forget to share your thoughts by subscribing, liking, and commenting on the video. FPV UAV operators from Russia's 56th Airborne Regiment detected and destroyed a 2S-3 Akatsiya self-propelled artillery gun belonging to the Ukrainian armed forces located in a trench near the village of Vakalovshchina in the Sumy direction. The Zala crew of the Russian Rubicon Center detected a P-18 long-range radar system belonging to the Ukrainian armed forces in the direction of Sumy. The target's coordinates were immediately transmitted to the Lancet operator. The target was successfully hit. Despite being 80 kilometers from the launch point, the operation was completed successfully. In the Kramatorsk region, soldiers of the Russian Southern Group Volunteer Corps blew up a drone control center where the Ukrainian armed forces were stationed with a precise strike from a kamikaze drone. UAV operators affiliated with the Russian armed forces detected a building used as a UAV launcher by the Ukrainian armed forces near Pokrovsk and completely destroyed it. Soldiers from the Russian 11th Army Corps target Ukrainian armed forces bunkers in the Kharkiv region. Russian Severyanin Group reconnaissance units are locating Ukrainian armed forces battle groups and bunkers, and FPV drone operators are conducting their destruction. Russian armed forces aircraft destroyed an anti-tank missile system belonging to the 155th Separate Mechanized Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine with FAB bombs near the village of Krasnoarmysk. FPV UAV operators from the 29th Combined Arms Army of the Russian Eastern Forces Group destroyed Max Isx Pro armored vehicles and HMMWVs belonging to the Ukrainian armed forces in the offensive zone in Donbass using fiber-optic kamikaze UAVs. In the Kupiansk region, drone crews from the 6th Army of the Russian Armed Forces Western Group repelled a Ukrainian counterattack. As a result of the clashes, 2 M113 armored personnel carriers carrying Ukrainian soldiers were destroyed. A camouflaged MLRS position belonging to a unit of the 47th Separate Artillery Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine was destroyed by precision fire from the Russian Air Force near the village of Stepovoye in Sumy Oblast. Near the village of Semenovka, in the Chernihiv region, Russian Air Force jets destroyed personnel and equipment of the 114th Separate Brigade of the Ukrainian Defense Forces in attacks using at least 5 FAB-500 missiles. FPV teams from the 6th Army of the Russian North Group continue to conduct combat operations in the Kharkiv border region. Attack drone operators conducting 24-hour patrols have located and destroyed 3 Ukrainian armed forces vehicles, a Starlink terminal, and a Baba Yaga-type drone. Footage of a 300mm Tornado S crew from the Russian armed forces destroying a pontoon crossing used by Ukrainian forces on the Oskol River. A Ukrainian forces truck was attacked by Russian FPV drone operators lying in wait while attempting to move towards its mission area in the direction of Kupiansk. UAV operators from the 85th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade of the 3rd Combined Arms Army of the Russian Southern Group of Forces continue to destroy shelters and temporary deployment points of the Ukrainian armed forces in the Seversky direction. Drone operators from the Russian 16th Special Forces Brigade are on duty. They are destroying Ukrainian armed forces equipment near the villages of Tatyanovka and Sidorovka in the direction of Krasnolimansk. A minibus, a pickup truck, and a buggy were destroyed in the attacks.